Take off your mask.
No.
You're like me.
The only thing that you and I have in common, Mr. Creedy, is we're both about to die.
How do you imagine that's gonna happen?
My hands around your neck.
Kill him.
My turn. Beneath this mask, there is an idea, and ideas are bulletproof.
It's hard to watch V for Vendetta today without thinking about governmental practices we've become aware of through independent news outlets, or the rife adoption of the film's Guy Fawkes mask as a symbol of revolution.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot.
I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
While the film is based on the 1980s DC graphic novel of the same name, penned by Alan Moore and David Lloyd, both works of fiction find their origins in the gunpowder plot of 1605, spearheaded by Guy Fawkes. At the time, England was under the reign of King James I, who had imposed strict suppression of Catholicism throughout the country. In fact, at this point, Catholics had been discriminated against for almost a century, facing everything from fines to execution if they didn't pledge allegiance to England's Protestant monarchs. But Guy Fawkes had a different idea: assassinate the current Protestant king, along with other important heads of state, and replace him with a Catholic monarch. Unfortunately, with information of their gunpowder plot leaking out, particularly due to some clearly half-baked ideas about informing Catholic members of government to stay away from Parliament on November the 5th, the plan was cut short with the conspirators being captured and executed. V takes direct inspiration from this, not only in the blowing up of Parliament, but in the motivation to liberate an oppressed society from their rulers.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
But his plan succeeds where Guy Fawkes had failed for some important reasons, most notably through V's dedication to bringing to life an idea rather than simply committing an act.
Beefus feces.
By the power of truth, I, while living, have conquered the universe. From Faust.
That's about trying to cheat the devil, isn't it?
It is. The only verdict is vengeance, a vendetta, held as a votive, not in vain.
Throughout the film, V insists that the most important facet of his revolution is the ideas fundamental to it. This penetrates the entire narrative, explaining everything from why V is so committed to broadcasting his ideas publicly to why he wears a mask. He wants to ensure that what is important about him, his actions, and the impression it leaves on society is the idea of standing up against oppressors, rather than idolizing hero figures. The graphic novel goes a step further in this regard, utilizing V's facelessness to promote total anarchy in the hope of creating a new world order without leaders, made obvious by the fact that anarchy literally means a state of disorder caused due to the absence of leaders or government. The slight sidelining of anarchy was even criticized by creator Alan Moore, as it blurs one of the story's most important questions, that of ethics in a time of revolution.
Violence can be used for good.
What are you talking about?
Justice.
And are you going to kill more people?
Yes.
Set in an alternate late 20th century, Britain finds itself under the thumb of an oppressive Norse Fire party that took power after a nasty nuclear war. Natalie Portman's Evey Hammond witnesses the callousness of their agents firsthand and is saved by the masked vigilante V, voiced by the amazing Hugo Weaving, who takes her in for both his and her protection.
Who are you?
Who? Who is but the form following the function of what, and what I am is a man in a mask.
Emboldened with ideologies of toppling the government, V sneaks into the national broadcast station to play a pre-recorded message stating his plan to blow up the Houses of Parliament, the headquarters for Norse Fire, on November the 5th of that year. Stirring up a government investigation, V then begins to hunt down and kill Britain's elite. After murdering a talk show host, scientist, and archbishop in cold blood, his intentions become blurred, with each murder being related to his dark past in an institution known as Lark Hill. There, V and others classed as societal undesirables were subjected to biological testing that was sold to the public as vital viral research against a disastrous outbreak. This lie is uncovered by detectives Eric Finch and Dominic Stone, whose narrative runs parallel to V and Evie's. Tasked with finding V, Finch uncovers the tale of Lark Hill and finds out that Party had manufactured the virus and released it onto its own people as a biological weapon, before pinning the crime on a radical organization. Thus, V's intentions seem twofold. He's essentially enacting a personal vengeance, a vendetta against those that wronged him, while trying to ensure that this never happens again.
What was done to me created me. It's a basic principle of the universe that every action will create an equal and opposing reaction.
After being caught in the raid of a friend's home, Evey is put in solitary confinement, a punishment that hardens her will and solidifies her belief that Northfire must be toppled at any cost.
Unless you are ready to offer your cooperation, you are to be executed. Do you understand?
Yes.
Are you ready to cooperate?
No. But I'd rather die behind the chemical sheds.
Then you have no fear anymore. You're completely free.
But when she's eventually released, Evey stumbles out into V's hideout, discovering that her imprisonment had been a charade. She rightfully freaks out, but V takes aim at the importance of the act, that the steadfast ideologies which have boiled up in Evey are far more important than whether the imprisonment was real or not. A very questionable notion. Regardless, Evey cuts ties and vows to never see him again. As the 5th of November nears, V's influence is felt and the Guy Fawkes mask begins popping up everywhere. The 5th finally comes, with the gravitas of the moment bringing Evey back to V, where he reveals his final part of the plan, essentially giving Evey the choice of whether to send a train filled with explosives to destroy Parliament, or to let the revolution sizzle out into nothing. After single-handedly defeating the ruthless government agent Creedy and his men, the injured V dies in the arms of Evey. Finch finds them when she's on the edge of pulling the lever, but also disillusioned with the government, he lets her do it. Through this act, society rises up to witness the destruction of the Northfire Order.
Are you like a crazy person?
I'm quite sure they will say so.
Is society intrinsic to being a human? This question underlies the entire debate of anarchy versus totalitarianism. There are two sides to this argument. Ever-eminent philosopher John Locke believed that the answer was yes, arguing that humans are social animals by nature, and thus have not only the need, but the obligation to keep a stable society. In this, Locke claims that we all intrinsically know the difference between right and wrong, thus informing us of what is lawful and unlawful by default, meaning we can easily see what a just, right society should look like, with it being based in the foundation of everyone having rights to life, liberty, independence, property, belief, and so on. Through Locke's lens, V's dystopian London has failed. The evil has overcome the good, marking the ruling class's moral and human failures.
The security of this nation depends on complete compliance. Any protester, any instigator will be made example of.
Giving justification to V's will to overturn, destroy, and kill members of the ruling class, which go against that unspoken human contract that is society. In essence, giving him a moral pass to do what must be done in order to restore society onto the side of what is right.
What if the worst, most horrifying biological attack in this country's history was not the work of religious extremists? If our own government was responsible for the deaths of almost 100,000 people. Would you really want to know?
In many ways, this is idyllic, believing in solid boundaries which define right and wrong, but we all know it's not so simple. Thomas Hobbes, one of Locke's elders, believed something quite different. He suggested humans aren't naturally societal animals, claiming that society can only exist through the power of state and governance, and that it is through this state that moral and ethical goalposts are outlined. After all, what good are laws if there's nobody to enforce them? Through Hobbes' lens, the downfall of the domineering Northfire party seems inevitable. They use punishment as a tool and justify the use of violence against ideological opponents. In other words, they make it clear that in their world, force is the only way to be heard. V simply reacts to this with, then so be it, prompting his use of force to be seen as totally justified, especially while he's spitting alliteration and wordplay to no end.
Thus I clothe my naked villainy with old odd ends, stolen forth from Holy Writ, and seem a saint when most I play the devil.
In the end, we're left with a burning question. What's next for this society post-Northfire? In the absence of leadership, would the country plunge into all-out anarchy, as Hobbes would suggest? Or would the universally understood good form a new egalitarian society? With that said, I'd love to hear what you guys think happens following the collapse of Northfire, so please share this in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, come join our regular streams on Twitch, and yeah, if you have any other suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.